Hello. In this video, we'll be running through the SWP K12 Round 7 application process. There have been some updates for this year, which I'll try to highlight as we run through the workflow steps. But to begin your application, you would navigate to the K12 SWP program, click on Applications. There's some information here you want to pay attention to as far as deadlines and submission date and time. And to start your application, click the 2425 application button. You'll want to provide a name, select your lead institution, click continue, and then that will take you into a workflow that looks just like this. I've seeded a lot of information in a demo application just to make this video as concise as possible. So let's go through it. The first step is the pathway identification. I can change the name. I need to select the region for which I'm applying for funds. I have a graphic that shows me the duration of the plan and assurances. I need to check all of the assurances to pass validation. You'll see here that if one of them remains unchecked, I don't pass validation. And when they're all checked, I do. So you can proceed without passing validation on all steps, but you would not be able to submit until you've passed validation on every step. So on the lead and partner agencies, I'm going to want to identify my lead LEA. I can select the type and then select the agency, or I can select the agency and the type will populate. Pull in some information. I see the ADA here. I need to add participating schools. One change for this year is that the school list is tied to the lead agency. So it'll make it a lot easier to find the institutions that you're looking for. Another change for this year is that an alternate contact is required. So you need to make sure that both of those have a green checkbox next to them. And if they're not, make sure you add the required contacts. Optional, adding K12 partner agencies. So I've added the County Office of Education here. Pulls across some information, and then I need to identify whether this institution is going to be funded. If funded is selected, they will need to budget, or if they're just providing services, or both. For this example, we're going to have a funded institution. Again, I need to identify the participating schools, add a contact, and to add a participating institution, this is what it would look like. Find your agency type and type in your agency, or vice versa. I'm going to remove that for the sake of the demo. So once I have added the lead and partner agencies, Nova is going to find any funding for either of these agencies on this plan, identify them here, and then you're going to identify whether this project that application that we're completing is scaling any of our prior investments or initiatives. And if so, I'm going to check the box for the ones where that's appropriate, and then I'll answer this narrative question. For the sake of the demo, we will just move on. Positive considerations. This is a new workflow step for this year. Positive considerations prior was incorporated into other workflow steps. You'll see that the first two questions are answered on my behalf because we have that data and we can do that. These are not overridable. And then I need to answer yes or no to the following questions. The next step will be adding higher ed or collaborative partners. Very similar to the prior process of adding lead or partner agencies. Identify the institution. Some information comes across for the higher ed. Add a contact. And then collaborative partners. So I've put in Santa Cruz Works here. It's an industry partner, and we're going to identify their role. For the sake of this participating collaborative partner, they're going to be subject matter expertise, and you'll be required to add a contact there. Cool. So moving on to problem statement and objectives. Several narrative questions here. I've just put in lorem ipsum, but I've kind of tried to demonstrate that you have full HTML capabilities when you are inputting narrative. So you can do bullet lists, number lists, enter URLs, bold, italicize, underline, and so on. So read all those questions, answer them as best that you can to try to achieve the highest score possible. And then you'll have some local regional economies information here based on the unemployment rates for the institutions. moving on. Industry sectors and pathways. So we're going to identify the targeted industry sectors, and we have a crosswalk to the California Community College sectors. So if I check business and finance, it'll find the appropriate California Community College sectors. For this example, I'm just going to put agriculture. And then we get into the design, purpose, and pathway. Identify the pathway or the design purpose, and then identify the pathway. So this is a multi-select. And if I select multiple, that's great. You'll see I have the same list. It's tied to agriculture. So that's another improvement from this year. It's based on the sectors that we identified up here, so you won't need to scroll through all of the sectors to find the pathway that you're looking for. Cool. And then we get into the work plan portion. So identifying some strategies. So I have identified curriculum and instruction and work-based learning. Based on that, it will open up a series of questions. So here is my curriculum and instruction narratives that I need to answer. Again, read the questions, make sure you answer to the best of your abilities. And again, for work-based learning. Here are additional narratives that were pertain to everybody, regardless of the pathways that they have selected. And identifying any other CTE funds that will be leveraged. So I've just selected a few. Cool, so I've passed validation. I'm gonna move on to the next step. Again, I've seeded lots of information, so I've just put in a pretty basic budget. Lots of useful information up top here. It's gonna show me my budget, the maximum I can request, grant funds, how I'm tracking towards the grant fund, so I can see if I'm short as I'm entering this, and I'll demonstrate that. So, funded institutions, there would be a budget. There will be a few narratives. So describe the planned expenditures for each of the budget object codes. So I'll only have to answer for the object codes that I've identified. Here's the partner agency budget. Higher education partners. And a breakdown. And I think that's it. One budget amount. So I'm going to enter a budget here. The budgeted institutions. And then the narrative. Cool. So for a budgeted institution, at least $1 is required in at least one of those years. Supporting documents. Updates to supporting documents this year, and for the most part, this statement will tell you everything you need to know about what is required. But let me just show you an added document. Here are the required ones. Make sure that you've uploaded the required document for each institution. If you have not, you would not pass the validation. But if we go through, it'll guide you through it. So if I select Cabrillo, it's going to show me that a letter of commitment is required. If I transition to Santa Cruz Office of Education, statement of assurance is required, a letter of commitment is optional, and so on. And just a tip, if I upload a document, I don't need to close this window to get to my next document. I can upload it. Once it shows that it's been successful, I can move on to the next institution, select the document, upload it. You don't have to close this window each time. Just save you a little bit of time. Great, so I've passed validation on all steps. Here is the review and submit. So my last chance, you're going to want to get others' eyes on this, make sure that everything looks good, everybody's bought into this plan, and submit it. So you'll have some information up here that you're going to want to read, and if everything looks good, submit. And now once I have submitted my application, I can unsubmit and edit all the way up until the deadline. So I can continue to work on it. Best practice, don't submit it until you're ready to, but if you do and you need to make changes, you can always do that right up until the deadline. Make sure that you have submitted by the deadline at the specific time, or the ability to submit goes away once that date and time has passed. Thank you.